The Spiritual Journey of ALEJANDRO JODOROWSKY. Chapter 2. The Secret of Koans. In quotes, if there are any tracks, I'll find them, even at the bottom of a well. Silver cane. El Guardaespaldas, the bodyguard. When Io Takata first visited my house in order to choose the right space for his teaching, I showed him my large library proudly. I had been surrounded by books since childhood, and I loved them as much as I love my cats. I had a sizable collection of books on Zen in English, Italian, French, and Spanish, but the monk glanced at them only briefly. Opening his fan, he moved it rapidly to cool himself. Then he left the room without a word, my face darkened with embarrassment. With his gesture, he was showing me that my erudition was nothing but a disguise for my lack of true knowledge. Words may show the way to truth, but they are not the truth. When you've caught the fish, you don't need the net anymore. In spite of this lesson, however, I could not resist sneaking out at nightfall to the garbage can where Iho had consigned the mysterious book he had taken from the American. Digging among the trash there, I found it and pulled it out. I felt like a thief, but not like a traitor. Covering it in black paper, I placed it inconspicuously among the many volumes of my library without opening it. Time passed. Thanks to the support of the Japanese embassy, Ijo was able to set up a small zendo in the University Quarter of Mexico City. For 5 years, I arose each morning at 6 o'clock to drive for at least an hour through heavy traffic in order to arrive at the zendo for 2 meditation sessions of 40 minutes each. Yet it had become clear to me that my path in life was not that of a monk. My ambitions were becoming centered on the theater. Nevertheless, Ijo took Takata's teachings to be instead of to seem to live simply, to practice the teaching instead of merely reciting it, and knowing that the words we use to describe the world are not the world, had profoundly changed my vision of what theater should be. In my upcoming production, a theatrical version of Nietzsche's Zarathustra, I had stripped the stage of its usual decor, including even curtains and ropes, and I had the walls painted white. Defying censorship, the actors and actresses undressed completely on stage after reciting lines from the Gospel of Thomas. The disciples asked him, when will you be revealed, and when will we be able to see you? And Jesus said, when you shed your clothing without shame, and when you take your jewels and cast them under your feet and trample them like little children, then you will be able to contemplate the Son of the Living One and have no more fear. The production was a success. With full houses from Tuesday through Sunday, I then proposed to Ijo, without much hope, that he meditate before the public during the performance. To my astonishment, the master accepted. He arrived punctually, took his seat on the side of the stage, and meditated without moving for 2 hours. The contrast between the actors speaking their lines and the silent monk dressed in his ritual robes had a staggering effect. Zarathustra continued to run for a full year and a half. After the last performance, Ijo said to me, "By having me participate in your work, you have introduced me many thousands of Mexicans to Zen meditation. How can I thank you?" I bowed to him to hide my shame, then I confessed, "I took that American guy's Zen book and hid it. I've never opened it, but I'm dying of curiosity to see what is in it. If I read it, will I be betraying you?" He burst out laughing. "We'll read it together and write commentaries about it." Then he told me the story of this mysterious book. This text is Gendai Soji Zen Hyoron and actually amounts to a critique of pseudo-Zen. Appearing in 1916 and written by a mysterious provocateur, it set off a huge scandal among Zen monks. In the Rinzai school, koans and their answers had been transmitted secretly for generations, supposedly in a notebook written by Hakuin himself, the founder of the technique. A number of masters were furious at having these secrets published. They went to great lengths to confiscate and destroy all copies of it, but someone managed to keep one. It had passed from hand to hand, and finally in the 1960s, photocopies of it began to circulate with an English translation and commentary by the learned scholar Joel Hoffmann. When I first visited that monastery in California, I realized that a number of monks were repeating phrases from it like parrots and imitating actions from it like monkeys. That is why I fled that place. Knowing the answer to a question is not the same as mastering it. Thus began a new phase of life. Ijo proposed that we meet once a week at midnight. He chose this dark hour because it is symbolically the beginning of the new day's conception. We engaged in conversations that literally began in the darkness and ended with the light of the dawn. Every one of the koans was an immense challenge for me. I had to solve not only the riddles the masters offered, but also the incomprehensible replies of their disciples. My reason was made to endure agony. I had to concentrate all my energy only to open a door in the wall of an absurd blind alley. To act or not to act. To follow reason or to follow intuition. Choose this one or that one. Trust others or myself. Seeing how uncertain I was, Ijo quoted these words from Hakuin. If you constantly explore a koan with total concentration, your self-image will be destroyed. An abyss will open beneath you with no place to gain a foothold. You will confront death. You will feel a great fire burning in your chest. Then suddenly, far away from your body, you and the koan will be one. You will go far and enter unmistakably into your own nature. Ijo paused and fanned himself for a while. Then, with a huge grin, he added, "Master Rinzai said, all the sacred scriptures are nothing but toilet paper. Words won't solve a koan." Yet, as a person who has spent much of his life reading, finding an indescribable joy in books, I protested. "Wait just a minute. Wait just a moment, Ijo. You say that you can't solve koans with words, but I'm sure that there are words that can dissolve them." Just as a cobra venom can serve as an antidote to the poison of a bite, I believe that the poetic mind is capable of providing a kind of cleaning service. One luminous, poetic phrase could nullify the question that has no possible answer. Ijo laughed. If you believe that, then you must think you can do it. You confuse poetry with reality, but I accept the challenge. Now give me a poetic response to the koan in the book that comes after the sound of one hand and moo. What was your original face before your birth? I concentrated intently and was about to say, the same as my face after my death. But I felt this would be falling into the trap of accepting the concept of birth and death by asserting that there is some face or individual form that we possess beyond this reality. So I insisted. I exclaimed, I don't know. I didn't have a mirror then. Ijo laughed again. Quite ingenious. It is true that you have nullified the question with this exclamation, but what is the use of that? You remain a prisoner of having or not having. You accept that there is an original self, but you do not see it. Despite the fact that you managed to escape the duality of seer-seen, your words are still based on what you believe rather than on what you experience. In the traditional response given in the book, the disciple stands up and wordlessly places his two hands upon his chest. What do you think of that? It seems to me that with the gesture he is saying, there is no before, no after. I am here and now, that's all I know. The question you ask has no answer. You are not going deeply enough. The disciple is not saying anything. He is withdrawn into himself, free from his hopes and illusions. His intellect is silenced. He feels this, here, reach out to the whole universe. This, now, include the totality of time, becoming eternal, and this individual me dissolve into the cosmos. He has ceased to define, to believe himself master of his body, to judge or to identify himself with his concepts as if they were real. He no longer allows himself to be carried away by the whirl of emotions and desires, for he understands that reality is not what he thinks or expects.